Since you guys watched the first video on how to set up your cover page and your personal aesthetic, this video is geared towards creating a mood board in a digital space such as InDesign. So if I scroll down here, I have my personal aesthetic page, and right next to it I have my mood board. The requirements for the mood board are going to be found in Student View along with the assignment for your cover page and personal aesthetic. It's all just on one document. I'm just adding on to this because Interior Design 1 has done the same thing as you guys. You're just taking it a step further. So remember, once you are ready to start your mood board, you're going to add a page as opposed to creating a whole new document, because throughout the entire semester, we are going to add to one document over and over again. So here is my mood board example. Some of the requirements are your name, having an image, a quote, texture, statement, piece, a pattern, something that represents a goal, something that represents success, something that you're inspired by. It's important that you don't take these things too literally. So what I mean by that would be, like, for example, you're overthinking again, you got this image right here. This for me was an example of a goal. So I'm always trying to work towards not overthinking things, just kind of going with the flow, and everything will kind of fall into place. So instead of like having goal typed out, don't overthink, I found an image of something that represented that. Same thing with visualize your highest self, then show up as her. To me, that quote represents success in my eyes. So it's not going to be that you have to explain every single thing on the mood board. It's just a visual representation of all these different requirements. So have fun with this and enjoy kind of this creative process, even though it might be new to some of you guys. Now that you've seen an example of a mood board, I'm going to walk you through how we kind of get started. So you want to start by collecting images or textures, whatever really inspires you. Obviously, if we were in person, you would kind of go around the room and collect these things. Since we are in a virtual learning environment, you're going to do this through collecting images, whether they're from Pinterest or online, or they're photos of your own. It doesn't matter as long as it fits in with the guidelines of the assignment. So to start, composition is critical to making a professional presentation board. So composition, this is our layout, okay? This is what makes it visually appealing to an audience. So for example, my board, I wanted to make it appealing to not only me, but also interesting to those that were going to view it without having any knowledge of who I was or what my interests were outside of that page specifically. So moving forward, I'm going to go over how we create that layout. You have to imagine your page as having 9 different rectangles on it. And where those corners of the rectangles or where the lines cross, those are called focal points. So it's important to remember that your focal point, so my focal point for my mood board was that vintage poster of power and equality. You're not going to put that in the center of the page like you would think of, because you want people to stare there. What we actually want to do is create a path for people to follow when they are looking at our document or our virtual board. So I put my focal point on this cross point down here and then kind of branched off in different directions, but never did I place something directly in the center and then build off from there. So if I move forward, the name for this type of layout is going to be called a path layout. So this is the layout that you will be utilizing for this assignment. So imagine here, our focal point could be in many different places, but they will always lie over our cross points or our little circles right here where the lines cross. So for this layout, this person decided they wanted the person or the audience's eye to move from the top left to this focal point, to that focal point, and then back down in the opposite direction towards the bottom of the page. So hopefully you guys can kind of see this example path And you'll do the same thing. I always just start with placing my focal point and then build from there based on shapes, colors, textures, just kind of whatever is inspiring me for the moment. So the path layout, when I look at your mood board, I should be able to see that this is exactly the path or the layout you used for this assignment. So how did I create this mood board? It's very simple, even though it looks, in my opinion, I think it looks kind of cool. So all you have to do is remember your basics of InDesign. Remember your frames. Remember how you can fill frames with color, how you can change frame shapes, text, and so on. So just as a basic intro for this, to just walk you through a few of those things, I'm just going to add another page as an example. The first thing I did here, and I'm actually going to move this page down here. There we go. Scroll down a little bit. So what I did first was I added in this background that you see here. And this background, when I was going through the checklist, I used the background as my texture. So I'm going to create one giant frame for this. So I'm going to go over here and choose my frame tool. And even though it's outside the margins, that's okay, because this is my background. I'm going to draw one large frame. I'm going to go to my File Explorer. And I'm going to go to where my images are for this. So here is my image for this. I'm going to place it here. A few things to note. One, it looks kind of blurry. And two, it doesn't fit the whole page. So if I right click and go to fitting, fill frame proportionally, nothing really happens. So I need to go to my selection tool, double click, and I'm going to use my arrows to bring this down until I can see one of the corners of this image. So here's the corner here. I'm going to hold Shift and kind of stretch this out a little bit. So now it's covering the entire thing. To change the quality of this image, because it does bother me a little bit, you don't have to do this because when it exports PDF, it should adjust, but you can right click and then go to Display Performance and choose High Quality Display. And that kind of helps make it a little less blurry. Now, if I go back up here, you can see I made this a little bit more faint, a little bit more transparent. So while this is still selected, up here at the top, see where there's like, it almost looks like a little checkerboard. It says opacity. I can use my arrow here and just use this slider and slowly make this more opaque so it kind of fades into the page a little bit. So that's how you do that. Everything else is just adding in frames. So for my first image, again, remember, imagine the lines are on here for your cross points, and I'm going to draw my frame for my first image, which is my statement piece. And it's up to you where you want to put this. You could put the statement piece up in this cross point or this cross point. It doesn't matter. So I have my frame. I'm going to pull up that File Explorer again and pull up my statement piece and drag that in. And if I want to make this bigger, I can hold Shift. I have to be on my selection tool though, always remember that. And I'm going to drag this by the corner. It helps lock the aspect ratio in place so it doesn't look stretched out or grainy. And there is my statement piece. So if I go back up here, the thing I added in next were my little circle frames there. Over here on your rectangle frame tool, if you right click, you can do ellipse frame tool, and this allows you to draw a circular frame instead of the rectangle frames or square frames we're used to. So there's one, and then I want this to be exactly the same size. So I just copied and pasted this. And what's nice is it's very faint, you guys, but you can kind of see these green lines that show up. See those 3 green lines? That means it's directly in line with the other one above it. So now I'm going to, again, I like to do groups of 3. And if you see the little arrows in between the circles, that means the spacing is the same in between them, which is really nice. So we know everything's formatted correctly. Again, I'm going to go to my Explorer, and I'm going to drag in this image I just really like this pattern. I don't know what it is about the 60s and 70s lately, but it's just been my vibe. Okay, so now I have these circles. I'm ready to add in another piece. And again, I'm building a path here. So the direction I want to go, I don't want to go up. I kind of want to go on the diagonal. It's more pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to go back to my frame tool, right click, rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to draw my frame out here for my next thing. So I think that I want to place my quote or my success, whatever you're thinking. Doesn't matter. This is totally up to you. A mood board is a little bit more of a free spirit board. It's not super, regimented. It's a lot more unique to you and what your aesthetic is. So I'm going to go up here to my selection tool. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Now let's say I wanted this to be behind the circle. You can right click and then choose arrange and then send backward. The other option is do control, and then there's a shortcut for this little tool or parentheses over here on the right. But since I don't know the name of it, we're just going to keep doing arrange and then bring or send backwards. Okay, and you can keep doing that over and over again. And now we can see it's behind this circle. So I'm just going to keep adding things until it looks the way I want to. Just always remember that your focal point does not go in the center. Everything must connect in some way or touch so that it all lines up together and creates something appealing for the eye and the viewer of your portfolio. So ignore this. I'm going to delete this page. Yes, that's fine. Okay, so now we're totally done with this, okay? And we are going to press W just to make sure our format's okay. Right here, I made sure these were lined up together just because it was more aesthetically pleasing. And then there's my cover page. So I'm going to save again. And I'm going to do what I've always done and do my file export so that I have a PDF to submit for this assignment. You will know you're submitting correctly if in your document you have your cover page, a personal aesthetic 9-box grid page, and a mood board. The first 2 pages shouldn't take you long. The mood board might take you a little bit longer to complete. So I'm going to go to export, name this whatever the rubric is telling you, click save, and then the next screen will take you to export. So that's all you're going to be working on today. Please make sure you pay attention to the due dates that are listed within Student View in our gradebook under assignments. This assignment is going to be called either your Studio portfolio or your Interior Design 2 portfolio. Make sure you pay specific instruction or pay attention to the specific instructions for your class because it might have you name something different than the other class is having you name it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I will try and get back to you in between the hours of 7:30 and 3:30. Have fun and enjoy creating your portfolio.